let's try and avoid talking over each other.
Well, why do you want to do that?
I mean,
we don't have to.
Let's not talk over
Let's
each
not
other.
do that.
Fuck you guys.
What?
Hey guys, welcome to the Orc-Chop Express. You are listening to Per Diem episode number 2. I'm your podmaster, Michael Goodman, and I have 3 excellent dungeon masters in the room with me tonight. I'm going to go ahead and introduce the person that has not been on the show yet first, which is John King. Do you want to say hi?
Hello.
Hey. And we have James Houlihan.
Hey, how's it going?
And Brett Rude.
Hey, what's up?
Hey. So let's jump into what we're excited about this week, and we're going to start with John because he is our guest.
You're putting me in the spotlight already, huh?
Yeah.
Of course.
Oh man, not even 2 seconds in and I'm already having to answer questions.
So
Question is, what am I excited for? Well, I'm excited to be here. It's a little warm, but it's great. Yeah, it's great hanging out with you guys in front of this hot mic on a hot day.
Mm-hmm.
Just
What
hot.
is the temperature today?
Hot.
Yeah.
It is fucking hot. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like
78 outside.
78,
but,
yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
It's probably hotter in here than actually outside.
It probably
Yeah,
is.
yeah.
It feels
We're
like
cooking a little bit.
it's cool though.
Well,
But,
that's excellent of you to say. Thank you very much.
yeah, thank you for having me.
Fluttering.
Brett.
I'm overly excited. That
Shut
you're
up,
here.
Brett. What are you excited about?
I was just saying. Actually, I'm really excited about the progress we've been making on what we've been kind of calling the dungeon, which is just my garage. For those that don't know, we're converting a good portion of my garage into our gaming space. A lot of people have been like, oh, it's your man cave, but my wife is arguably more excited about it than I am, so it's either the cave or the dungeon or
It's really
OCE
cool. You can roll
headquarters.
dice and do laundry.
Yeah. We also need to make sure we're not doing laundry during the game
Yeah,
because
that's fair.
it's a little loud.
I was wondering why handcuffs were on the wall.
Yeah, dungeon has its own connotation.
Oh yeah,
Just a little bit.
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, but yeah, it's coming along and just rearranged everything. So
Yeah, well, we got
Exciting.
these like sweet brick wall things that
Yeah.
are looking awesome, and
trying
I
to
mean,
soundproof
it's
it.
very early stage, but you know,
Yeah.
once we get going up, we'll get some photos and stuff. It's gonna be awesome. It's gonna look really good.
Yeah, we're getting there.
Yeah. Well, I'm personally really excited for Curse of Strahd, which just came out.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
pretty awesome.
Oh, I'm very excited for that.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, yeah, you would be. You're like the darkest person. Well, not physically. But
Oh, Ravenloft back in the day was my jam.
Yeah, that was mine too.
For the longest time, that's all I ran was Ravenloft. So I'm excited. I think we were discussing it a little bit. I think I'm going to be doing that for Halloween. Will be our
yeah, dude, that's
Curse
going
of
to be
Strahd.
awesome. I'm really excited.
I'm excited because I've been running a game that's very similar to Ravenloft for like 15 years, and as fun as it is to run, I still want to play it.
Oh, Noctivia.
Yeah. I would like to actually play in a dark horror style game.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to play.
Yeah, I'm really excited. I love Noctivia. So for the listeners that don't know, Brett has his own creation world that he's been running for a lot of years, and it's really, really good. So
Well, thank you.
it's not that good.
I just remember last time Brett played in Ravenloft, he ended up with his eyes poked out.
Yeah, I poked out my own eyes actually
Nice.
on
Metal.
purpose. Yeah, it was pretty metal.
That's awesome.
That's what happens when you fail a powers check.
Well, yeah. So just real quick, I had a dwarven cleric, and I thought I was doing the right thing, and I cursed some bad guy's soul to hell.
Yeah,
I was pretty young too. Like I didn't really think about it, and then you're like, "Oh, you're cursing someone? Okay, powers check."
that's interesting.
And I got a boon from it. I could actually, my eyes looked like cat eyes, and I could see in the dark, which is very beneficial in a Ravenloft setting. But my guy, being a devout cleric, saw this as a curse and was just so thoroughly ashamed by it that he took a dagger and gouged his own
Hot
eye.
poker, actually.
Was that? Oh, that's wow.
I remember that.
All right, I'll hop over
Vividly.
and poked my own eyes out, and then became a blind dwarven cleric.
Yeah, it would back. That was back before the days of inspiration. So I think we pretty much just let you, act as normal with like a slight penalty just because it was good role playing. But
Can I get inspiration tonight?
no,
Because of that?
no. Practice for asking, you lose. You get disadvantage on everything.
It's not like built up.
It's not like credit.
Yeah, it's not like, hey, I did that a few years ago. Is it cool if I cash that in now?
Yeah, so for the listeners, we're gonna be actually jumping on our next Sea of Mist episode after this, so which is really we're all really excited to get playing tonight. But I mean, so I am really excited for Crystal Strahd, but I think it's gonna be hard to avoid spoilers until October.
Yeah, I'm purposefully avoiding it. I mean, I know as a DM, I should probably be checking out like Chris Perkins' new series that they're doing with it, but
Yeah.
I kind of don't want to taint my own kind of perception of it because it's like reading a book, right? Like your mind's eye is different from everyone else's, so watching someone else run it, I feel like kind of might dilute my own vibe. So
yeah, I really wanted. I was telling Brett about that. I really wanted to watch their new show, but I don't want to spoil myself, so I'm gonna actually stay away from it.
If you've never played Ravenloft, or specifically in like, you know, Lord Strahd's domain, Barovia, you shouldn't, because it's pretty cool. It's some classic shit.
Yeah, it's awesome.
So what do you got this week, James? What are you excited about?
I'm excited because over the last weekend, John and I went out to Silicon Valley Comic-Con, and we were able to watch the the Wizards of the Coast fireside chat that Nathan Stewart did, who's the TSR, well actually they're Wizards of the Coast now, brand manager for D&D.
Yeah, I was really bummed I couldn't go with you guys to that.
Yeah, well, you missed out on the heat and the lines.
Yeah, so you missed out on a lot.
The lines.
Yeah, it was actually pretty crazy.
Man, I wanted to be in those lines so bad.
Yeah, we tweeted out some photos of it, and I mean, it was just, I mean, it was a cool convention from what I saw. I think they just had some first year kind of growing pains.
Yeah.
I mean, we got in line and we got there about an hour early thinking, okay, cool, like, you know, we wanted to get there earlier, but we didn't get parking that was closer, or we couldn't find parking closer than a mile away.
Yeah.
So we had a bit of a hike. Then we got there, and the line was just, I mean, it was the entire entry room just zigzagging like Disneyland style, and it wasn't moving at all, and there was different lines cutting in from different places and people complaining. It was crazy.
Yeah. Didn't you say there was like some weird clown dude or something?
So like, we didn't move for about 10 minutes. We did. We moved about 10 feet in about 30 minutes. The first 30 minutes we were there. Then they got their shit together and got stuff moving, and within the next 30 minutes, we actually finished the entire line, which I didn't think we were going to do. I was like, we're fucked.
Yeah, we were late.
But we
you guys were like messaging me saying that you didn't even think we were going to get in.
Yeah, but then what was crazy was like the problem with those Disneyland lines where you zigzag, you're walking past the same. I almost said the same fools, but the same people. Fools. Sorry, it's the Skeletor in me. But like, we're walking back and forth, and since it's like a Comic-Con, everyone's in these crazy costumes, and like normally when it's just regular people, I can only walk past the same people so many times before I start like thinking of things and like noticing things. And one of these dudes was this gigantic like 7 foot tall like horror clown guy, and I was just like, Jesus Christ, dude, keep this dude away from me. And I had to walk past him like at least 25 times.
But so how was the actual segment when you guys got in there?
It was awesome.
Yep.
Nathan was really thorough. It was actually really cool because I wasn't sure what to expect going in and hearing like a fireside chat. You're not really sure, but it was actually this really cool like kind of a retrospective of the D&D brand itself, and it was a lot of stuff that you don't really think of. Like, you know it in the back of your head just because, well, at least being a D&D fan for so long, it's stuff that you've kind of observed happening, but. It was really cool because he looked at a lot of the social reasons why D&D is as culturally relevant as it is, and why it's picking up popularity again. And it was actually really cool because he touched on just the simple need for socialization, right? Like, D&D is at its core a social activity, so it satisfies a very basic human need. You need food, you need shelter. There's Maslow's hierarchy of needs, but then you also require social interaction. That's why there's a social bar in The Sims. That's why, solitary confinement is like one of the worst punishments you can have, because it's awful. You go crazy if you don't talk to people. So D&D giving people that are, that might be kind of socially awkward or for whatever reason don't get a lot of social interaction, an outlet to do that,
Yeah.
or just might not be comfortable doing it and have this space where they're comfortable doing that, makes it, you know, something that's, you know, something that people really go, you know, can be as it could be as desirable to you as like your favorite food, for example.
Sure.
So yeah, he touched on that. And
what other takeaways were there?
You know, I mean, generally the slideshow that he did was pretty cool. He showed some clips of, like James was saying, that was kind of culturally relevant, kind of like the community clips saying, hey, we're even here, between tweets and things like that. So it's just kind of saying, yeah, you know what, we're still here, we're still going strong, 5th edition's doing great. And then he kind of segued into question and answers. So he did about half an hour slides and then half an hour questions and answers.
Were there any fun questions that were brought up?
Basically, it was a lot of beginning DMs, which I was pretty excited to see, because one thing that he did point out was DMs especially important because, you know, from his perspective, that's an entire group of players that are now being entertained and now being introduced to the hobby, whereas they might not. So it was really cool to see him being so encouraging of new DMs. But the big thing was, it seemed like the new DMs struggle a lot with rules, and it's one thing we brought up in our podcast last time was like, don't worry about the rules. And it seems like there are a lot of DMs worrying about the rules because they were asking about pacing and how do I keep combat from being slowed down.
Well, pacing is one of our main topics tonight, so we'll jump into that in a little bit. But why don't we just jump into our first main topic for the night? And this is one I added in. I didn't tell you guys about it before, but it's Dungeon Masters using PCs. And
the DMPC.
The DMPC.
What's wrong with the personal computer?
Actually, can I chime in on this one real quick, because I was doing that recently.
Please do.
Yeah, absolutely. So before you start, I just want to mention, so there was a lot of chatter on Twitter, which is why I brought this topic in, and a lot of people are completely for it, and a lot of people are completely against it. And so yeah, I want to get all of your guys' thoughts on it. So yeah, jump into it, Brett.
It's been on Reddit a lot as well.
Has it?
There's been a few threads about it, yeah.
Excellent. Well, it's a great topic to talk about then.
So in the campaign I was running, it basically started as something I was playing mostly with my wife, and I needed a character in there to help her out. And rather than making it an NPC, I figured, I'll make a PC and just kind of play alongside. And I'll be perfectly honest, I don't like it. I tried it, and I think there were a couple times where he like stole a kill or did something cool.
Now, do you?
I did something that someone else wanted to do.
Now,
And then,
in your previous, like in all your years running games and whatnot, have you normally been using NPCs?
yeah, we just have NPCs.
So this is kind of like after years you've brought in a playable character.
Yeah, I thought I'd try it out because when we kind of started forming up these campaigns, I wasn't sure where things were going to go, and I was like, maybe I'd want to play this character later, so I'll just kind of develop it alongside. And then there would be other combats where I'd totally forget about him, and he'd just be standing there like an idiot, and it was just, so no, I don't like running him. He has no personality. He's kind of funny because he has no personality, but ultimately I was like, I don't even want him in the game anymore.
Sure.
So I've been kind of making him more into just an NPC that's there to hold the torch and do a couple things.
Which is useful since my characters rarely have dark vision.
Yeah. And he doesn't have
He
dark
doesn't
vision,
either.
Yeah. So yeah, I apologize for any kills he stole or stuff like that, but I'm not like, I'm not sold on the guy, and I like keeping him as an NPC. He can be kind of fun, but he's not going to be anything.
Yeah.
Well, my thoughts on the DMPC are pretty similar. I've tried to do. I haven't really ever had a PC where I'm like, okay, guys, this is my character as the DM, and he's going to roll with you guys. But I actually, at least until recently, because with our Code DMs campaign that we're doing, where basically I'm DMing 2 sessions, then Brett's DMing 2 sessions, and we flip-flop back and forth. My initial game, that was before we started recording the podcasts, I had my character tagging along with the group, and it was a similar thing. And I've had this with NPCs that I've tagged along in the background as well, where it's the same thing. You start to forget about what they're doing, or, typically during combats, I just wouldn't roll initiative for them. I would just say, okay, you're fighting 6 NPCs, my character's off fighting this one, so let's not worry about them until you guys start attacking them and things like that. But I've seen it a lot in the past with other DMs, and well, not a ton, but I have seen it, and it can really ruin the game for players. And this is actually good advice for NPCs as well, because some NPCs the DM will throw in might as well be a DMPC because they're coming in and saving the day. And I can tell a DM the worst thing you can do, at least from my perspective, when there's a TPK and everyone goes down, is be like, cool, Grognak the Barbarian, my favorite, NPC, shows up and, you regain consciousness and Grognak's there and all the enemies are dead and he heals you up and takes off. Like, having an NPC save the day makes the players feel so lame. Better off to just have them be captured by bad guys and the new adventure is escape from the bugbear camp.
I think
that's
I'd
the way to do it.
rather have that memory of, remember that time we all died?
Yeah.
And then home dude came by.
Yeah, then
Threw
some
some
saving everyone.
Yeah.
health potions in our mouths and
this
boned
came
off.
this came up on Reddit, and my response was pretty much, or actually no, I think it was Twitter, and I responded basically, too many DMs forget that the PCs are the stars of the movie. Unless you're doing it for a specific reason that moves the plot along, you're not helping anyone have fun, and that's what you're there for.
Sure.
Yeah, I'm pretty much in these guys' same boats. I always felt that a DM player character just might as well be an NPC that you're really attached to at that point, because it's kind of a weird way to game the system. I was playing another game where we would round robin, so all of us would DM at one point or another, but we had some character overlap or a character introduction. And I remember, this will crack him up, and I doubt my brother remembers, but he had this guy that he obviously wanted to introduce to the group, and that was his new player character. But my guy didn't like him, just at all. Did not like him at all. And I was wearing heavy body armor, and this guy was like a lichen wolf guy, and he tried to intimidate me. He was like, I'm this badass, and I'm going to intimidate you. And I was like, no, dude, that's not my guy is straight hitman. He's gonna murk your wolf real quick. And so what happened was he rolled to try to intimidate me. I beat that roll, and my guy just laughed at him. And then ever since that point, whenever the wolf could come in, he would try to come in and either steal something from mine or whatever and try to do this stuff. And I was literally about a roll away from just pulling out my handgun and just blowing the dude away. And I was like, no, I know where this is coming from. So it was just weird because I know he's trying to introduce him, but at the same time, I'm kind of like, you could have just slid him in at the start of somebody else's game. I didn't need to have him as part of the story myself. But, it was just weird because what if I did just blow him away? And then he's like, oh man, what are you doing? Or most likely he's like, oh, he takes it, he's all right. And then, we get in this weird fight, and it's just, it was just a weird situation. So I'm like, if you have NPCs, just keep them NPCs. Sometimes they work, if you have a real small group and you need to kind of bolster the ranks if you're putting somebody in something tough. But when you start filling out your party, once you roll in with 6 people, really no reason to have them there at that point.
Well, and also when you're, if you just look at the pure basics of what's going on there, right? I'm the DM, I have unlimited power, and now I'm going to insert myself into this game. It's really kind of poor form. You're like, cool, now we've got this dude with us who, how many, I haven't researched this, but how many times do you think DMPCs go down in a fight? Probably not very fucking often.
Yeah.
And it might, and that's not to say DMs are all throwing, player character knowledge out the window and things like that, but on a subconscious level, the DM's that's his character. He's not going to want it to just get its ass kicked, especially when he's not even really playing it. So
no, I had a DM who made us lose all our gear, but their character didn't.
That's what I'm talking about.
I was like, how does that work? That
I feel
doesn't work.
the dungeon master really kind of has to keep the responsibility of
You have
running
to-
the group
Yeah.
and
literally have to
not
be
focusing on themselves
separate,
at all.
yeah.
Yeah, impartial.
Well, and that's why, basically, for our campaigns, that's why you'll notice, like, my character hasn't even been in the podcast because she's been off doing something else while you guys are doing your thing, because I don't even just want to have to deal with that.
Yeah.
Because, you know, it's not even like a temptation thing. It's just more stuff to worry about. We already have 6 people in the group. You don't need help, and I don't need to give you help.
Yeah.
So,
On the flip side of that, there have been so many NPCs that I've had in games that I've thought, man, I would love to play that character sometime. I haven't had much of a chance to, but I can name a bunch that if someone else was running a game, I would love to take that NPC that they probably already know. In fact, that's what this PC guy is, a character from a previous game.
yeah, I was about to say, that's Boots.
Yeah.
That I named.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
We were going to originally turn him into Boots.
I was gonna wear him as a pair of boots. Yes.
He was a lizard man. So if you're a DM that has a really cool character in your game, keep them as an NPC, just more flavor text. Play up the character, but don't let it steal the spotlight from the players. And then, if someone else is running a game and you really like that character, run that guy as a PC in that game, but not in your own.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think that's the best way to go. And so I want to jump into pacing, our second main topic, but I want to kind of reference what John was talking about, like with his brother. You guys had this like confrontation thing going on, which is kind of a pacing thing. And James, you had found this excellent question that had to do with like player confrontation, and it was a whole pacing nightmare. And John's little story there with his brother just totally reminded me about that. Do you want to tell us about that?
Yeah, it was a Reddit thread that was posted by Articulate Hobo. And without going into the huge background of it, basically they were starting the Lost Mine of Phandelver. They had just fought their way through, spoiler alert, the Goblin Ambush. And I guess this lawful good ranger who had just joined their group was the only one who made his tracking roll. So he was basically kind of in charge of whether or not the party was able to proceed along the quest or not. And he wanted to, just take the cart and sell it, which isn't really in character with a lawful good
it's a very
anything.
Yeah.
But and apparently he spent like 40 minutes arguing with the rest of the group as the only holdout who wanted to do this.
Yeah, 40 minutes, that seems like a pacing issue.
Yeah, exactly. And the question was basically, this dude, Articulate Hobo, wanted to know, how do I deal with this? And so that seems like a pretty good topic for pacing.
Yeah, definitely.
And you know what's funny is we actually had, I'm pretty sure when we ran that, we had a bit of a discussion at that point too, because that's it's a literal crossroads, right? Like, do we continue on? Do we go up and, follow the very obvious lead?
Yeah, well, I mean, having the conversation as the group playing the game, I think that's normal conversation, but it seems like this issue is going way outside of that.
Yeah, well, and then also, sometimes pacing needs to be interrupted with something like that, right? Like, Brett and John both know, like, I can be kind of an obstinate asshole sometimes, especially in character, so it's the motivation.
And also when you're playing D&D.
Especially. and as a person. But, no, it really matters what the motivation is, right? Like, so when I was playing Avernus, who's, like, my favorite character ever, because basically I was challenged to, to play a paladin, since I always roll chaotic neutral and have some mercenary asshole, and I was playing that up, and so, like, if you're in a situation where, like, no, my character would not abandon this helpless person to get killed, that's a legitimate thing. Like, yes, definitely, like, fight the rest of the party on abandoning innocence and things like that when your character would never do that. But at a certain point, like, the DM's got to step in when you see, and this kind of does go back to you're there to make sure people are having fun. If you look around the table and everyone's, like, at each other's throats and no one's budging on anything, it's at that point where you say, okay, guys, time to take a vote, and then that's what you're doing, or something along those lines.
One thing I always think of is what would make a good movie.
Yes,
would I like
cinematic.
would I like to watch a movie about a guy selling a wagon? No. I think that's boring. some drama Chronicles. Or something. Yeah, the Wagon Chronicles.
He's so shrewd.
Some super dramatic actor all like,
On this episode, we're talking about the seats.
I know. So it's like, Sometimes you can throw that out there, but yeah, you bring up Avernus, and what's interesting about that is there's definitely a difference. You know, when you were butting heads with the players, it's because you were doing it in character. That's what your character would do.
Yeah.
This other guy clearly wasn't. I mean,
that's not a lawful good
That
action
is
to be
not
like,
a lawful-
sweet,
no,
they're
it's
dead,
not.
let's take their shit. Like, no.
Yeah, that's poor form.
yeah. So I would actually, in some ways, encourage a little bit of headbutting if it's in character.
Yeah.
But ultimately, every character has to be willing to budge in some way, shape, or form. Like, even Avernus, you know, if every single person is like, no, we got to do this thing, it can. If Avernus's course of action is going to take everyone way out of the game, as a player, you have to kind of understand that and work on some form of compromise, is what I would say. Or everyone can start rolling their persuasions and kind of just help each other out, come to some kind of agreement, you know, put a pin in that and come back and help out that kid or whatever.
Well, and a really good suggestion that was mentioned in the Reddit comments was just, if you're the DM and you're sick of listening to this stuff and you don't want to just step in and play parent and be like, you got to take a vote or whatever, just be like, okay, cool, you guys are arguing and making a bunch of noise. Guess what? There's more goblins in the woods. Enjoy these arrows. You know?
Yeah.
And then...
Actually, and I had a question about that, which is perfect that you said that. So how do you guys feel about... Because I didn't get to play that part of the game. I came in on the game after that. But from what you've told me, that crossroads section, it's like either you're continuing forward with the story or you're completely going into the unknown. How do you guys combat if you guys go into the unknown? Like, how do you guys pick your pacing back up to get on track?
Well, you just have to hook them back into the main story, right? So you got to look at the content they're skipping and what's given from that and direct them towards that stuff. So it does throw a wrench in the works for sure.
It does. I mean, you have to put on your improv hat and you know, think about it. But yeah, you could usually loop them back around that way. It's like, okay, you go and sell the wagon. What do you want to do now? And then once they start going, well, I want to go check this out, then you can just go ahead and take those goblins they were supposed to encounter and have them encounter at a later. I mean, it's not cool, right?
Sure.
Because
But I mean, what if they keep digging down the hole? Like, oh, well, we're in town. I sold it. Let's go sell
at a
some more
certain point
shit, and let's go rob some people in town.
Yeah.
Like,
no, then you travel the rabbit hole with them, and that's your total improv hat. I've had you know, DMs and GMs who got flustered because we've broken content before, but you know, were able to come back and bring it to it, and even bring us back to the module that they were following.
Well, there's
A
a
lot
lot
of
of
it's
beginner
incentive.
DMs out there too, right? And that might not be able to improv as well, and they kind of need to get back on track with the module to keep going. What would be a good tip for you guys to at least say, instead of going down the rabbit hole with them, how would you guys bring them back on point?
I have one thing I've done before in a zombie survival game. Kind of similar idea. Someone wanted to split the party. They wanted to go off on their own.
In a zombie game?
Yeah.
Remember Rachel?
What an awful idea.
Yeah.
That's a great idea.
That's how everyone starts doing
That would
enjoy that
definitely be
shit.
what my character would do, so I'd die first.
So I killed her. No, in short, no. So, you know, so if this guy is so dead set on selling the freaking wagon, I'd say, okay, go ahead, you take the wagon back. And he goes off, takes the wagon back, and I'm like, the camera's gonna follow the interesting story. And then he'll say, well, what do I do back in town? And he say, you're selling a wagon. Anyway, back to the game. And then he'll realize, oh, I just took myself out of the game. And you're like, yeah, are you having fun?
I better find a horse and get back over there.
Yeah. And then maybe he comes riding back, so, oh, I sold that wagon. And everyone's like, great job,
That's
dude.
awesome.
Like, we got all this cool gear and experience points, and you got
You sold a wagon.
like 20 gold pieces for your wagon.
Check
Good
the
job.
sword out. It's called Excalibur. I don't
Yeah.
know what it does,
Yeah.
but it seems pretty cool.
I mean, it's one of these things. Try to keep in mind, as a DM, you are in charge, and don't abuse that power. But if one player is trying to bring down everyone else's fun level, then you kind of have to, you know, cut them off a little bit and kind of slap their wrist a little, and let them do their thing. But they're going to realize they're not having as much fun, and then they'll come back and realize, oh, maybe I should stick with the party. I'll probably have more fun doing that. Yeah.
Well, also, you need to know your party, right? Like, and it
True.
makes sense because in this guy's question, it was a new player, right? So you don't have a perfect read on that guy. But part of being a great DM is knowing, hey, my party likes this stuff, so now I know what carrots to dangle in front of him. With this guy, he obviously is all about money, right? He wants to go sell the wagon. So all you need to do is have one of the dying goblins sputtering up blood and mention, how wealthy they are, or some sort of clues as to, hey, you've heard rumors that this really wealthy caravan that went through was plundered on in the same area. Now they're like, okay, now maybe he's going to reconsider that. So.
Yeah, well, that's a great comment too, because I feel like you're digging into the intentions of the player,
Oh, yeah.
which I mean, that's great. Like,
Yeah, this guy sounded like he was really almost trying to be disruptive on purpose.
Yeah.
Not
Yeah.
necessarily
so
just...
funny. I can't picture people like
I
wanting
know,
to do
right?
that.
It's
but-
really weird when people want to do that and just kind of go left when you're trying to zig right. But, I mean, that's what
Yeah.
it kind of sounds like.
They
This
do
guy.
that, but and as fucked up as it sounds, and as not cool as this guy's behavior was, it's still the point of the game for everyone, including him, to have fun. So if he's only going to have fun if he's like getting material wealth, steer him in that direction. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah,
Just one last quick thing.
sure.
You were talking about it earlier. You guys are arguing. More goblins come. Have fun with that. Arm those goblins with some flaming arrows, and there's a gunpowder keg in the back of that wagon.
Oh, how about
Boom.
that?
Oh,
Actually,
what do you know? That wagon's
there,
gone.
There's there were some casks of oil in it.
Oh,
so.
there were. I wrote that down. So yeah, and then the wagon's gone. Now you have no incentive
Yeah.
to go back, and now these
It's
goblins.
like, I want to go sell the wheel of this wagon.
Yeah, I know. I want to sell.
He's always selling some charcoal.
It's the only piece
Free
that's still
firewood.
good.
It's so good. It's slightly burnt.
It's like I find the farmer house. I offer to sell him firewood.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, well, what about combat? Let's talk about pacing in combat.
Ooh, that's it.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it has gotten better from what I've seen in 5th edition. That said, we never really noticed combat slowing down that much in 3.5 until we hit 15, 20th level.
True.
And then it got gnarly. So, really, it's just a matter of scaling your encounters and making sure the difficulty is where it needs to be. Because that's where I feel like a lot of this comes from. Isn't so much DMs not knowing how to pace combat, so much as having trouble gauging the challenge rating of their encounters for their party. Because if your characters are having a ridiculous time getting through monsters, chances are it's too hard for them, right? So, that was actually Nathan Stewart's comment was, if you're having, if they're taking too long, just knock everything down a few challenge levels, because worst case, they cleave through everything super fast and look like badasses, and everyone enjoys being a badass, so,
Yeah.
Yeah, I sometimes admittedly forget that because in this setting we were talking about earlier in Octovia, it's very much like a survival horror thing, and I really try to make it very challenging and people right on the brink of death every time, because that's the thrill of it, of I've got to just struggle to survive because it's that brutal of a world. And I like making things kind of brutal. But that being said, getting back into D&D, I do have to keep in mind that it's okay not to just beat the crap out of your players and let them have their victories, their wizards that they just kill in 6 seconds. Those moments where everyone's cheering.
those are great.
No, it was in that moment, that time, after that I realized, that was a lot of fun. Was that encounter difficult? No, it wasn't.
Yeah.
But it was fun because we all worked together. It's kind of this perfect situation. We all had a great laugh.
Yeah, I mean, as far as challenge rating, it was somewhere around the Office Space copy machine.
Yeah.
But it was just as satisfying, so you can't really take that away from the players, especially in a situation like that where you guys earned it. You went in the perfect way to surprise this dude at his desk, and then comboed it with the perfect move of Mage Hand his Staff of Defense away from him. So.
Yeah, so we're commenting about our last episode, Sia Missed, the first episode, so you guys should check that out. It was hilarious.
Yeah.
It was brutal.
I'm gonna make stats for a mimic that looks like an office copy machine.
Well, I mean, do you guys have what's like one of the biggest hurdles you've seen as far as pacing in combat? Like, has there been any experiences of it just dragging on forever?
Oh yeah.
Well, the dice really, that can be a thing. Like,
actually, like mimics eating people.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Sorry.
we had that last game of Eye of the Fallen where we just kept rolling 1s and 2s and 3, and like we what was it, a challenge rating 1 monster?
Yeah.
And it literally, like, it was a mimic, and it like swallowed 4 of us. I mean, at least I think everyone in the party was in there for at least 1 turn or something.
I wasn't.
Yeah, I mean, it was most of the party, and that wasn't just it wasn't because we're noobs and we don't know what we're doing. It was just everybody rolls poorly sometimes, and sometimes the dice aren't on your side, and that can cause combat to really drag on.
Sure.
And that kind of comes back to the same thing as with arguments slowing down your pacing. If you're the DM and you see that people are like, oh god, this sucks, get me out of here, I'm not having fun. If everyone's not having fun with your encounter, maybe it's time to move on to the next one you have planned, because they might like that a little bit more. And just remember, like, you have a DM screen, and if you don't, I encourage you to get one. But they can't see the stats or the armor class of this monster, so unless they're like really doing some reverse engineering and being like, oh, how come I can hit him now with the same roll or whatever, they don't know how many hit points it has left or any of that stuff. So yeah, next shot kills it, good job, let's move.
Yeah.
And that actually ties to a second question, which was kind of a follow-up question, because 2 questions about combat and rules and learning them were asked at Nathan's talk, and the second one was from he specified, I'm a new DM and I'm still learning the rules, and I feel like that slows me down as a DM.
Yeah.
And he was really concerned about that, and then he kind of pulled it back to the combat thing, but at first it sounded like a general question of like, I'm still learning the rules, what do I do? And from personal experience, I can say, like, I'm still learning the rules, so as long as you trust your players, and you kind of have to, because it's a cooperative effort here. Just don't worry about not knowing a rule, and it's not a bad thing to just say, you know what, I don't know what this rule is. Let's just make an arbitrary, do this skill check, do that skill check. We'll look it up later and move on. So,
Yeah. No, I was gonna say that's your power as a dungeon master, right? I mean, as long as you have the basics of what the rules are, you should be pretty good. But if you don't know the whole minutia yet, or you're still learning, you'll get there. Like we generally do. We'll make a judgment call, put a pin in it, and we'll look it up later just so we have it for reference for later on. And I always felt that was the best way to go about it. There's no reason to get hung up in like, well, okay, hold on, let me do this, and then you're flipping through a bunch of books, and then it stops the whole flow. And if you're a really great combat moment and you just want to keep it going, because like it's mentioned, Brett's very he looks at it like it's a movie. He wants to play it out like it's a movie, and you don't want that flow to get boggled down by saying, okay, well, I'm gonna check the book and then I'll get right back to you. It destroys everything. Just keep going, tell your story, and then you'll come back to it and you'll learn it.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
you learn the rules by playing.
Yeah.
I've never not learned the rules that way. Even as a player, you'll start to learn what the player's rules are, and then you realize what the DM's trying to do at the same time. So I felt that that's the best way to do it. You guys learn together.
Yeah.
Not having the rules right off the bat, that's okay, as long as you get the basics down.
Well, I guess that actually kind of also ties back to if you're first time DMing or not knowing all the rules yet for D&D 5th edition, because if you're a brand new DM and you don't know any of the rules yet, maybe you're not ready. But I think, like, you guys have been running games for so long with different systems, I think that you can get away with improvising and running the game and having most of the rules down. But I mean, I don't know that person's with the context of their question, like all of their scenario. But if they're a brand new DM, maybe that's not the way to go yet.
I think he was getting hung up in the whole, I'm a new DM, I don't know all the rules, I should know all the rules because I am a DM.
Sure.
And he was just probably going through that mantra, and he was getting really worried because he doesn't want to do this in front of people and be like, well, I don't know.
Sure.
Because it's like, oh, I'm losing respect for him. It's cool, dude, you'll get through it.
Yeah.
You have to start at some point.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where I felt that question was coming from.
Yeah, and that also might just extend from a DM he's had in the past, where, because some DMs are like, you're the encyclopedia of the rules, and obviously you want, in a perfect world, to have a real solid grasp of the rules so you can make those judgment calls, because
for sure.
the more tools you have in your toolkit, then your judgment calls become combining rules and making special things up, which is really cool. But you shouldn't let not knowing the rules get in the way of you having fun. And we had a situation like this when we were running our last session for Sea of Mists, when we were in the Red Brand's hideout. I didn't know the rules for jumping over, chasms. I knew they were in there. So I just said, all right, Nada, you want to do that. Hold your action while you look that stuff up. Let's move on and keep things moving. And then they looked it up real quick and they came back. Oh, it's just your strength plus whatever. And
what does Dungeons and Dragons break down to as its core basic concept is, and this is with most role-playing games, there is a target number you're trying to roll. You roll your d20 and you add whatever your skill is to it. So as long as you just keep that in mind, if you don't know a rule, it is super easy just to come up with something. Jumping over a chasm, athletics check and set a DC to it. They roll, they fail, or they pass. And that can get you through most situations, most complicated rules.
That's a really good tip, yeah.
So even if you don't know the rule, you're getting through the situation, you can come back to it, and that's generally a fair way to do it. And that's how most of the rules are. So it's just go to that and you're good to go. So pro tip, DC.
Yeah.
Using that as a guide, you're probably not far off of whatever the rule actually is anyways.
Yeah. Well, and then you also, players have an expectation too, though, right? Because you can't get away with doing it that much.
Oh, well, that's actually a really fair comment. If you don't want to just do completely throw, Chris Perkins definitely has his own style, but he does also know the rules. But at the same time, you don't want to just throw out the rules and be like, hey, I'm the freeform storytelling GM guy, and you might as well not have character sheets. If players start feeling man, this guy never takes into account the special rules that I built into my characters, because obviously you want to make your characters with a character in mind, not a build in mind. But every player is different, and some do. But if you put a lot of time into making your character this badass, and then half the rules that you use to make it are ignored, that takes a lot of the fun out of the players. Out of it on the player's part. So the players are gonna have an expectation we're playing D&D. We're not playing Torg or Savage Worlds or Shadowrun. So if you start just randomly pulling rules out of nowhere or ignoring rules, but at the same time, if it's just a matter of we don't know exactly what this rule is, let's look it up later. I don't think anyone's gonna really complain unless that's all you ever do.
Yeah, if you want to play without character sheets, play Amber.
I don't even know what that is.
That's old school.
Wow, Amber diceless rope.
All right, let's jump into our Twitter topic for the week, and I actually did two. I'm gonna do one poll from now on. It's too much to talk about to having two votes out in the Twitter world, but
they can't handle it.
I know. Well, what it really was is, so one of our main topics we're talking about tonight is drinking while playing D&D. And I thought it would be fun to throw a poll out on Twitter and see what people thought. So I did it for something else as well. So this time only, we're going to have two Twitter poll topics to talk about, one from now on. So let's talk about drinking at the table and what our thoughts are on that. I'll give you the results at the end of our discussion here about what everyone else said. Okay. So drinking at the table, what do you guys think?
I'm not against it. I think if you need to have a drink to relax or chill or whatever, as long as you handle your drinking responsibly, it's great. If you kind of get a little too overboard or you can't handle it, then you're going to just not disrupting your gameplay, but everybody else's too. So I definitely don't want, I definitely wouldn't want that to encounter or happen during any session that I'm hosting. But if you have one, two, it's all right. I've never been against it, but handle your proverbial high. So if you like to drink, handle your drinking with care. Don't do anything that's so belligerent that you ruin the gameplay or anything like that.
Yeah, I would say know your group. The guys that we play with, for the most part, are totally cool with having a few drinks every time we play, and trying to keep that under control. I haven't run into that for a little while, with someone drinking a bit too much. But
yeah, we have.
Well,
yeah,
we did. I didn't really want to call someone out, but hopefully that's not going to be much of a thing. But if I were playing with a new group or people I don't know very well, I would probably say, hey, maybe one drink at the beginning, but then we cut it off, like not at the table, because you don't know. You don't know if XYZ person is going to be able to handle their liquor or not.
Well, if they have more, I mean, you might really get to know that person, though.
Yeah.
In ways you never wanted to.
Yeah.
Well, it also goes by group, right? Like I'm sure some D&D sessions out there, probably a lot, are like drunk history, only like drunk D&D, and that's just how they roll. But personally,
Ashton Fisher just followed us. Thanks, Ashton Fisher.
there you go. But yeah, I don't personally really drink.
Everyone's
that.
waving high, like you can't see it.
But I don't really drink. I'm more with like Gandalf and the Halflings on that one. But I mean, it's just, I don't begrudge anyone who wants to drink. And like we even suggested in our last podcast, like if you need to loosen up and you're freaking out and you're nervous, have a drink.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's one of those things where you don't want to be that person that's just kind of, you have three, because I know my limits, right? And it's also just, this is a general like life thing, right? Know your limits.
Oh yeah.
Pro tip.
Yeah.
Like if you figure out, as I have, like, hey, I've got this weird quasi 1/16 Asian gene and I can only have 3 beers. Don't have more than 3 beers.
Yeah.
Like that's your limit.
Yeah, at Ryan Charaba actually started the hashtag on this topic, hashtag responsible gaming. So
That's true. Game responsibly. Like, it's just, one of those things where you got to know your limits and don't exceed them, because you don't want to be that guy hanging all over everybody during the game being like, I love you, man.
Yeah,
like,
that's not cool.
They're trying to play some D&D and roll some dice and you're fucking it up. So
what do you guys think? I said we're talking about drinking while playing. What do you all think? Either totally for it or prefer the table sober? What do you guys think people gravitated towards?
I'm sure that everyone picked they're for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
John,
I'm all for
James. What about?
I said for it, but only because, not because I want everyone drinking, but I like the option there. Personally, though, I wouldn't really mind if everyone was sober either, but
Sure.
I'm not out there to like control other people. So
Yeah. What do you think, Brett?
It's probably going to be more for it. Also, if you have a member of your group who's like in recovery or whatnot,
Oh yeah.
I think it would be pretty respectful just to keep it as a sober table, because you can still have a ton of fun playing this without alcohol.
Yeah.
And if someone has a problem with that, then maybe they shouldn't be playing D&D.
No, that's a great point.
That's a good point.
You know.
Well, 70% was totally for it, as I'm sure you guys
Yeah.
are all aware. We had some people commenting on it. Most people are just kind of saying, as long as people aren't getting completely drunk or blitzed, like blitzed is the word that's out on one of these. I wouldn't actually ever say blitzed, but
I would.
yeah, I mean, we've had that in the past, and it doesn't usually end well. So, and I think that's probably the people that are out there saying I prefer a sober table have had experiences like that, and they're
probably,
like,
yeah.
it's kind of like gun control in Australia. They're like, all right, we had one bad experience, no
Yeah.
more guns. Like that's it. Like no more beer.
Well, we appreciate everyone actually pitching in on the vote, and yes, hashtag responsible gaming. Well, so let me throw out this second poll thing. So you guys know I like to throw tweets out to some of our favorite D&D guys. So I shot out a question to Chris Perkins as well as our new buddy Nathan Stewart. And the question that I threw out to them was, what is your favorite D&D 5th edition class and why? And same thing, let's have you guys chat about it and I'll let you know what their answers were after. So James, why don't you start it off? Favorite class and why?
Favorite class and why? I'm going to go with fighter, just because it's always been kind of my go-to. My favorite character ever was a paladin, but I think just as far as class-wise, I love how it's kind of, and this also goes back to sort of the same reason why I like playing humans mostly, is it's kind of an everyman class a little bit. Like the regular foot soldier or whatever is a fighter, but then it also runs such a gamut of characters as you can be like this dragon slayer or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Just for the versatility and the grittiness of it. Then also, it's just always my favorite characters in movies are like, Mad Mardigan and General Kale and the dudes in Excalibur. I mean, ever since I saw Excalibur when I was a kid, I wanted badass armor with like little shoulder neck guardy things, and everyone's yelling at me at their podcast. They're like, this nerd doesn't even know what those things are called. But yeah, so.
I used to know what they were called.
Shoulder neck guardy thing.
Oh yeah,
I mean that's what it is.
ye oldie.
Yeah, of
There's
course.
a gorget that covers your neck. I know
Yeah.
that. And then, man, don't know. But anyways, they look cool, and I always wanted them.
You made some out of license plates.
I did on my wasteland armor,
Yes.
but yeah. So I mean, that was always it for me. Just being in the thick of it and cleaving orcs and shit. That's basically my jam.
Nice.
Mine, I've always enjoyed fighters as well. So like one of my favorite characters was a fighter barbarian type guy. I used to play the big, strong, silent type. But I will say, picking up 5th edition and thinking up characters for this campaign and working with my wife on some characters, I'd say I actually kind of have 2 right now. I know you don't want me to choose 2. But my favorite one right now...
Yeah, and the question is if you had to choose. So
Yeah.
it doesn't. We can always love more than one thing, of course.
Yeah.
There's so many good classes, but if you have to
Ow.
choose...
You have to
One.
choose.
You have to
It's
choose.
like Highlander, dude.
There can be only one.
I'm gonna
maybe
say-
2.
First place for me is Wizard, which is so
What?
against type for me. Yeah, that's
That's
so not my
I didn't
usual.
see that coming.
Just the variety of spells and the mechanics for it. It's like a whole new world. So, and no, I'm not going to sing it.
Thank you.
I've been having a lot of fun picking out my spells and kind of going with a theme and really playing it into my character. But helping my wife with her warlock character, her warlock is awesome, and the rules for warlocks is really cool. They're really a lot of fun, and I'm kind of jealous. And at some point, I would like to roll a warlock. But
Yeah.
but right now, I'm having a lot of fun with wizard.
What about you, John?
Well, let's see. When I was growing up, when I was a wee lad, I used to play fighters and barbarians as well. But I've always gravitated towards rangers. Like as far as Aragorn was always one of my favorite characters in Lord of the Rings. I always liked Robin Hood, all that, bow and arrow, that type of stuff. So I've always liked rangers. 5th edition ranger could probably do with a little help. It's a little different than say 3.5 and other ones, but I'm sticking to my guns, or my bow in this case,
Or your berries.
or my
Well,
berries.
That's a
my
great
berries.
comment. So I'm going to tell you guys what they said on Twitter,
Okay.
but then let's jump into the difference from going from 3.5 into 5th edition.
Sure.
But anyways, really quick, yeah. So Chris Perkins said wizard for obvious reasons, and he went on to say, when I'm not DMing, I play a 19th level human wizard of the coast. Yeah. And then Nathan B. Stewart, he said, my current favorite is High Elf Rogue. Why? I like to go stealth, pop out for an arrow here or there, and the shocking grasp cantrip is good for emergency getaways. Okay, so I mean, let's jump in then about 3.5, or moving from 3.5 to 5th edition, and that was actually a question that was brought up on the fireside chat. I remember you telling me about, right?
Yeah, one of the players basically said, hey, I've got a bunch of players that I want to start playing 5th edition with, but they're really hardcore 3.5 guys. And he asked Nathan, like, what would be your elevator pitch?
Yeah, I mean, so that was at the fireside chat. So I mean, what did Nathan say about that?
Pretty much his elevator pitch, if you will, was it kind of takes the things that you do like about 3.5, streamlines it a little bit, and it's a great way to get like a starting point. His reaction, my reaction to it is, it's less crunchy than 3.5. It's very less number heavy. They combined a lot of different things together, so where you used to have multiple different types of visions, you only have one type of vision now, and it kind of works for all. Yeah, so I guess if I really had to elevator pitch it, it's like, it's less crunchy than 3.5, but you'll still get a lot of the things that you liked about 3.5 in it.
Yeah.
Definitely give it a chance, and hell, the rules are up on the website.
Yeah. What do you think, Brett?
What I would say is a lot of agreement to that, in that it feels like they took a lot of what they learned over the years since 2nd edition and brought it back to really what it was meant to be as a role-playing platform, to tell great stories and to have fun characters. It seems to have less of a focus on the crunchy rules and more of a focus on the storytelling. And
Sure.
that's what I've enjoyed about it.
Well, it's a really interesting view, ours, because I feel like all of us here moved away from 3.5 because we didn't like it. But if we were trying to tell someone to move from 3.5 into 5th, we have to assume they actually like 3.5.
Yeah.
So, I mean, what in 3.5 did you guys like when you played it?
It was a two-edged sword, right? Like, you've got all these cool feats that you can add to your character and really customize it to do anything you want. But also there's like 500 splat books that you have to dig through, and that a DM has to contend with, like players potentially fucking up his game with like 500 books worth of content.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a nightmare, and it bogs everything down.
So do you think a lot of the people still playing 3.5 maybe are still unhappy with some of that stuff, and they just don't even want to try 5th, or like?
I think some people just, it's like any other edition of D&D. Everyone has their version that really resonates with them. From what I've noticed, and I'm not judging anyone who likes 3.5, but it does seem to me to be kind of like the one that rules lawyery players tend to really enjoy, because there's a lot of that, sneaky rules lawyery tricking going on, where you can kind of make this ultimate build of death, and have your crazy ultimate range guy with his whipping chain that can kill anybody that comes within 15 feet, hitting him with all sorts of different attacks and whatnot.
Sure.
So I get the appeal of it for sure. It's just for the games that we like to play, where it's like, I want to be able to cleave through like an army of undead or an army of orcs, and once you get to level 20 and you start throwing in like 15 enemies, good luck with that, dude.
Yeah, I mean, like, how long is a battle in 3.5 of the same number of, like, 10 creatures in 3.5 and 10 creatures in 5th edition? Like, what's the difference in time there?
I mean, it's not uncommon in D&D in any edition that you're going to be spending, like, an entire session on a battle.
Yep.
Large battle.
But that tends to be, you can have, if you're going to do something like that, you can usually get a couple big fights in a 5th edition game, so...
Sure.
That was one of the things with 3.5, as you mentioned, once we got higher in level, it really got bogged down in the combat. And we started, pining for a time that we could just play the game. And we found Savage Worlds, and we jumped over to that. We're playing that almost exclusively for a long time, because it gave us what we wanted at the time. We wanted fast, furious fun. We wanted to be able to have the combat, have that kind of cinematic experience, and then move on with our day. We didn't want to spend the entire night doing one combat. And I feel like this 5th edition, I feel like the people working on it took some notes from other systems like Savage Worlds that were much lighter on the crunch, and much more focused on just going through and having fun, and a lot less rules based or rule centric, and kind of incorporated that into 5th edition. So I kind of feel like 5th edition is almost like a birth child of something like Pathfinder meets Savage Worlds. It's kind of in between those two.
Yeah, I mean, my elevator pitch would pretty much just be, I used to have the 68 Mustang that was my favorite car ever. It was super awesome. It had this big old V8. It was loud as hell. You floor it and you're just flying. But at the same time, there was a lot of stuff broken with it. Didn't have power steering, didn't have power brakes.
I remember that.
No AC, not ideal things. So for as much as I loved it, it wasn't perfect. And that's kind of one of those things where you can, it's similar to a D&D system where you contrast that with a new car. My new car has great gas mileage. It has AC, Bluetooth, all this stuff that they didn't have in the 60s. But yeah, and similarly with the game system, there have been advances in game design. It's like any other industry. The more you have to iterate on something, in any product, it's going to get better. And that's what you're seeing, where Wizards of the Coast is obviously looking around the rest of the industry saying, hey, what games are being successful and why? And you've got, like Brett mentioned, Savage Worlds is a great one. And you have systems like Inspiration springing from, being inspired by similar mechanics in other games.
Sure.
And things like that. So as a result, and also they have to have been looking back to the previous editions and being like, what made those original games cool? And they're bringing a lot of that back, and it's really nice to see it focusing on story. You have elements like backgrounds, where players have a mechanic to give themselves cool background stories for a benefit, but at the same time benefits the DM because he can now say, oh cool, you're this folk hero. And that also jogs the player's imagination. Why are you a folk hero? What happened? Mm-hmm. So then they can weave that into the story. Now you've got future adventures that the DM can weave into the campaign, engaging everyone in the story. So it is really cool to see that kind of stuff. And those are the sort of things I would use to sell D&D 5th edition.
Yeah.
Yeah, all right. You guys got me thinking.
Uh-oh.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, I know, it's dangerous. I bet you can smell the smoke. All right, so since we have all these players that we might have listeners who have friends who might be reluctant. They might be these 3.5 holdouts. I'm going to buy them a copy of 5th edition.
Oh, dang.
Very generous of you, sir.
Sure, I'll even buy them some dice, too. My color choice. Whatever. I'm sure they'll have plenty, but I'll buy a copy of 5th edition. Let's try to set up something on Twitter.
Yeah.
And get people to tweet at us and say, yeah, my friend's the biggest holdout, whatever. He won't even buy the book. He won't even stare at the book. And whoever we come up with, we'll figure out. We'll get their address.
So if someone wants to move from 3.5 or convince their DM to move, they can get a copy from us. That's awesome.
Yeah, if you can convince one of your buddies to try it out, we'll foot the bill.
Okay. And we'll have Brett. We'll have Brett draw something up for you guys. He's an excellent artist, so we'll draw inside the cover and sign it for you guys or something. Here, I'll tell you what. When this airs, the first person to reach out to us on Twitter with the hashtag I will move from 3.5. Hashtag I will move from 3.5. We'll send you guys a copy.
Fair enough.
So we'll do that.
And I get to draw whatever I want.
Whatever you want. Orc with his penis and all.
Wow. Just going straight anatomically correct.
That's just what I do.
Well, we knew that's where he's going.
He's a great artist, but he adds a penis to everything.
Just everything. It doesn't matter.
Can't even do a smiley face without a penis.
It's a landscape.
All right, well, let's move on to our last topic for the night, and that's sex in the game. And I know there's a lot of fun things to talk about with sex in the games. I know, James, you said you read all the time about people talking about
it's actually
sex in the game.
It's kind of shocking how often it comes up. I mean, just actually on the way over here, I checked Reddit on my phone and I saw just this morning someone posted, help, there's this player in my game and he won't stop trying to I think the term they used was diddle everything. And it was actually I should probably look up who posted that, just because you should talk to your friend, and just because he apparently tries to use persuasion/intimidate to get sex from NPCs, which
intimidate?
That's actually behavior
that's called rape?
That's not behavior you should be encouraging. So let's just put him on some sort of community watch or something.
I don't remember who it was, but why don't you find the link afterwards and hit him up, say that we're talking about it, and they can listen in.
Yeah.
So so he keeps trying to do it, right? Is what you're reading. Yeah,
it's kind of a situation. Well, we've had sex come up in a lot of different games, and unfortunately, we've been there where it goes horribly awry. But first, let's
hang on. Brett's giggling really bad. What's the reference here?
Well, you know the story better than I do.
It was all right. So we were playing this game. It was kind of a modern supernatural type thing where we were all investigators of some sort, but it was demons are real, vampires, all that stuff. And we had one player who unfortunately was and I hate to throw out generalizations, but he was kind of the classic basement dweller, and I feel bad for the guy on some levels, but it was also it was super uncomfortable for the rest of the group because we captured this succubus and she was trying to use her evil powers to seduce one of the party and so she could escape, right?
Yeah.
And he was just getting a little too into it, right? Because when you roleplay sex in a game, it's generally oh cool, you made your persuasion check, this person's into you. okay, I want to go and take them into the bedroom, and we do our thing. Okay, fade to black, moving on. Who's doing it? Who else is doing other stuff?
It's PG-13 sex.
Yeah, this was like getting really into it, and it was to the point where, without having
Deadpool sex.
No, it was to the point like without having been charmed by this succubus, this player was having his character like take actions against the rest of the party to get alone with that character. Or that NPC, and it was just
sad.
it really was, and it was just super awkward and so after that session we took the DM aside and we're just like, look dude, we're not cool with how that went, which is what you should do when you're not okay with something. I mean, there was the option of just like public shaming as it was happening, but nobody really had the heart to do that, so we just kind of took him aside and we're like, look man, that was not cool. We were all super creeped out by it, and we just appreciate if nothing like that ever happened again.
Sure.
And the unfortunate part was the next adventure was the kind of the climactic part of... I shouldn't use that word. But it was
got to the climax?
It was but it was like the climax of our adventure, or our campaign, right? Where we had tracked the super bad guy to his evil lair.
You tracked the bad guy?
Yeah, we attract him. No, we tracked... Yeah. But we tracked the villain to his lair, and it was this... it was frustrating for everyone, actually, because... And I'm sure for this other player, he was probably very frustrated, but we basically had tracked... Because the DM had put a lot of effort into creating this really cool, essentially, dungeon for us, which was this, like, dance club, evil bad guy club like you see in Underworld and all these other games, or movies where there's, like, this subculture of vampires or angels and demons or whatever it is. And it was a 7-story club where each one represented a deadly sin.
Oh, Jeebus.
And you can see where this is going, right? Like,
yeah.
We're not going to make it past lust. It's going to be just the most creepy encounter we've ever had. So, fortunately, our DM was willing to work with us on this, and actually we circumvented the whole thing because my character was this, like, kind of Punisher for God sort of character. He was like an ex-Delta Force paladin type dude, so... I had access to C4, I could bless things, and we're like, well, if we have to go through all these levels of hell, he's probably on the top one, so let's zip line to the roof, bless this C4, and blow it up, and, like, rappel off the side. And we did that, and the DM was gracious enough to let us do that and bypass the entire thing, because honestly, no one wanted anything to do with it, and which is unfortunate, because now you've got this one player's behavior sidetracking the entire game, and, blocking us from what otherwise could have been a really cool game. So, perhaps we didn't handle it in the best way, but it was a risk.
Well,
it
sounds like you guys did probably. The advice I definitely would approve of myself, which is talk to the DM or the person directly. What do you guys think?
Yeah. So this gentleman didn't really understand how uncomfortable it was making everybody. But he just didn't know. So hopefully this was some form of learning lesson for him. I don't think I've seen him since, quite frankly.
Yeah. What do you think is the best way to approach the problem?
Well, in that situation we did kind of a double whammy, right? Like, we talked to the DM, and then we decided, let's not even risk it. It could have been fine, had we gone through that dungeon.
Yeah.
It was just kind of the residual creepness where no one was willing to take that risk.
I suppose there's really two ways to go about that question. One is, what do you do as a fellow player in a game and another player is bringing up sex too much or getting too detailed or whatnot, and you're getting a little iffy about that. And then the other question is, what do you do as the DM? My personal suggestion, if you're another player, either during a break or between games, bring it up with the DM. Let them know how uncomfortable you are with it. And hopefully the DM should take care of business after that. If it's really bad at the table right then and there, politely bring it up right then and there. There can be things that make... And this goes really for anything that is either offensive or uncomfortable. You don't have to put up with it, and you can let people know that you don't like that.
Sure, but some people have a problem
Yeah.
confrontation, or I wouldn't call it a confrontation, but it's some people just aren't really good at bringing it up.
Yeah, and that's why you wait until after the game. And then I was just going to say, as a DM, it is your responsibility to listen to your players and make sure they're all comfortable. So if a player comes up to you and tells you that, you got to do something. You can't just let it go, because that's going to end badly.
Yeah, and especially this actually kind of ties back to, like similar to people that are in recovery for drinking and things like that. Some people have had troubled pasts with sexuality, so you need to be sensitive to that. It's kind of a grim reality, but that behavior that one player thinks is funny and goofing off could be considered a real trigger for someone else. And I hate to be the trigger warning guy, but at the same time, you have to be sensitive to that, because you want, first and foremost, your table to feel like a safe and comfortable place for everybody.
Yeah.
And if one player is running around using intimidate to get sex from NPCs, that's just gross.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very fortunate in most of my gaming career, which has spanned probably way too long at this point. I've never really ran into the problem, as far as having players who want to have imaginary sex with imaginary characters in front of typically my group's a bunch of dudes. So I've never had that problem, but I hear it's a problem, and I always hear from other people. It's just like, oh man, this guy did this, or and they did this, and it's like whatever. And I was like, whoa, that's nuts. I would never think. It's like, I know this is part of the fantasy, is you're playing someone who you've never played before. Or you're not a barbarian or barbarian.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny how often James is like, it's all the time.
Exactly.
Yeah, it comes up on Reddit constantly.
But kind of token to what these guys have said, if you feel uncomfortable and you're vocal, I'd bring it up. Personally, if I was uncomfortable, I would bring it up. I'd bring it up there and then and there, or I would just put you on blast and make you feel really bad. That's me. That is just me. But bring it up to the DM, because it is the DM controls. It's controlling the story. The players are a very integral part to it. But you need to be able to view, and if you see people are kind of cringing or whatever, try to steer it another way.
Sure.
I was also going to say, don't let that make you be scared of sex in the game, though.
Yeah, exactly.
There's ways to do it. In James's game, I have a rather charismatic gnome, Bard, who he's not really a pervert, but yeah, and he mentioned that he met this barmaid named Elsa at this bar, and it sounded like she was attractive, so I was like, all right, hey, she seems pretty cute, and I made a couple rolls. But instead of getting into the down and dirty details of what happened in the bedroom, I just said, okay, she comes with me back to my room at the inn. That's it.
Yeah, it was basically just, he expressed my character's a womanizer. That's just part of how he's written. So, he encounters an attractive barmaid, and he just was like, okay, cool. I'm going to roll to, what was it? Just persuasion or whatever, because I want to ingratiate myself with this person. You rolled really well. Okay, cool. She's showing interest. Moving on.
Maybe a better reference is Fable, right? Like, can't you can you can marry any woman you find, but it's like, oh, you guys got married, and all of a sudden there's a kid. It just cuts scene, and you now have a kid. That's as simple as it should be.
Well, yeah. I mean, in the game that Brett's talking about, it was just cool. You persuade her, she likes you, whatever, and then we move on, and then Brett just casually mentioned oh cool, I wake up next to Elsa the next morning, and I'm just like, okay, cool, that fits.
I'm feeling great.
Yeah, it's not like you have to get into the nitty gritty of exactly what happened and creep out everyone at the table.
Here, I'll put it in perspective. Do you want these voices describing your fantasies?
Exactly.
Oh, yeah.
Well, maybe Brett, and to a lesser degree me, but I definitely don't want to hear James's.
How dare you?
Oh, God.
And you
have to edit that.
Yeah, you don't want Mike doing sound effects.
Yeah.
I get pretty inventive with my sound effects.
It's just nothing but springs.
And on a side note, I mean, I'm not trying to pat myself on the back, but I kind of feel like I brought Elsa as a character into the game, because I'll mention her once in a while, and my character's grown attached to her, in some way, shape,
You
or form.
just wait.
Oh, snap.
Oh.
Assassin, I'm guessing.
Assassins.
Yeah, I'm gonna kill her before she kills me. I'm kidding.
That got dark really fast.
It turns out you just murdered her. Like,
You don't know, dude.
Obalt the praying mantis.
Oh no, she was gonna give you this golden sword.
She was pregnant. I'm like, no! Oh my god!
Whoa,
That's
turned
really dark.
Yeah.
well, that's
Golden
all of our
something.
main topics. Oh, look, it's Kevin, my raven, who brings us letters when we have them. I moved away from the chainmail thing. I went to Kevin the Raven.
Really?
Oh,
We're
I
not
wonder
doing
why I
chainmail?
named it Kevin. That was totally subliminal.
Really? I thought you were doing that on purpose.
Oh, yeah, every question should be from a raven of that person's name.
Fair enough.
So, Raven Kevin
Quote
asks...
the Kevin.
Quote the Kevin.
Gotcha!
He spit out his drink, winning.
No, it splashed up in my face. Don't drink out of
Das
a horn. Das horn got me.
Is that
That's
bubble?
So, Kevin asks, I'm running my first D&D 5th edition game next Friday. I'm going back over everything repeatedly. Can a GM be over-prepared? What do you guys think?
Yes.
Next. No.
Well, he's the only raven flying in right now,
Yeah.
so you can expand on that.
Well, if you don't mind, I'll jump straight on this one. But yes, you can be over-prepared. I think the best way to do it, if you're going to spend a lot of time preparing, and this sounds really cheesy, but just thinking about it is good preparation, right? Like, you want to make sure you've given it a lot of thought and thought about possibilities and what you want to do. If you're running a module, it's a lot easier because you've got a script to go by, but if you haven't, you just want to make sure you hit your main beats. You've got your intro to the scenario, what's going to happen, how are you going to hook the players and get them to go where you want them to go, and then you want the meat. What's the really cool like battle that's going to happen? What's the dungeon exploration? What's going to go on there? And then the conclusion. What do you want to have happening? It's kind of like a college essay. Just have your intro paragraph, have your body paragraphs, have your conclusion paragraph. Once you nail those down, the rest is pretty fluid because, as we've discussed, players can take it pretty much any direction they want. So
Yeah.
you want to make sure you hit your main bullet points, you've got an idea of what you want to do, and beyond that, you don't want to spend, again, going back to the same example with the dance club, our buddy spent probably a good week putting that dungeon together. He had all these badass traps, all these cool custom characters that were the bouncers for every level, and we blew them up with C4 in like one round.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you don't want to end up wasting a ton of time. So just think of cool ideas, and what's cool about doing it that way is that if you decide, okay, cool, they're going to fight this super sweet like ogre dude, and I've got this backstory for him and stuff, and then they go completely the other direction and you never fight him, just introduce him later.
Yeah.
Have them encounter him later, doing in a different area that they don't know they missed out on that guy because they went the complete other direction. So
Yeah. Well, and then, like, Brett, last week you were talking about, like, whenever you think your players are going to go right, they go left, right?
Every time. And then
So,
I
I mean-
say, I'm going to prepare for them to go left, and then they go right.
Yeah. So, I mean, maybe you can expand on that a little bit. Like,
Yeah, I have learned over the years to really get comfortable with improvising. And that's more my style. I'm not saying everybody should do that, but preparing too much has been a hindrance for me. I'll prepare something super awesome and the players just go in the opposite direction. I never get to do it. I never get to show them this awesome idea I had, or this awesome monster, this awesome concept. But those are also some of the best games because I just thought of something on the fly and we all kind of organically came up with a really cool thing. And it makes me think of, and I can't remember his name. I learned this in school. It's this Russian filmmaker from the 20s, and I can't remember his name off the top of my head. And he had this really dark saying, and I've always remembered this. It's, you have to be prepared to kill your babies. Yes, it's a horribly dark thing, but what he means is if you have this really cool scene, this really cool concept for your film that you want to use, but it doesn't A, move the story forward, or B, explain anything about a character, you should get rid of it. Even though you love it, get rid of it. It doesn't do anything for the story, and you have to take kind of your own ego out of it and do what you can for the story. So I try to keep that in mind for my games. Like James was saying, kind of have a general concept of where you'd like, what kind of creature you want the players to fight, because you can generally, work that in no matter which direction they go. But be prepared. We're talking about over-preparing. Be prepared by being not so prepared. Be ready to go in any direction.
Be ready, but don't be ready.
and I would say the things you should prepare most are creature stats. Really, just have the creature stats ready, because if you have those ready behind your screen, then you can make up any quick encounter or thing, and you have the stats ready and raring to go, and you can use it. And then you'll have creature stats that you never use, and you'll have ones that you use a bunch of times, but you'll have that ready. That's always been my big thing, just to have that ready behind the screen for whatever situation comes up.
I haven't DM'd myself, and I hope one day to do it for you guys, because I feel like I'm learning so much from you guys. But I feel like if I was going in to do it my first time, I would think about every point of the story of where it turns and whatnot, just thinking about if that doesn't go how it's supposed to completely, what would I make up right now on the fly? And just kind of as I'm throughout my week of preparing, what can I do to fix that? But and I mean, what do you think, John?
Yes, you can over prepare. Definitely. I don't know, these guys have kind of played in two types of my games. Brett has played in games where I've had the whole story. I mean, every arc kind of in my head, and I knew what beats I wanted to hit, and I knew how I wanted to get there, but it didn't matter how many adventures that I fit in between until we got to that point.
Sure.
So I like to think of things as beats for a story, kind of like, what James is saying. And what Brett was saying is keeping stats and keeping those things, because that's kind of important. If you're going to be kind of playing with the rules and stuff in this case, you should at least have the stats ready, because then you can kind of do whatever you want that you need to. But, as a first-time DM, don't stress yourself out. If you don't remember every little detail, it'll come back. Yeah. If you're a module player and, it helps you kind of lay it out, improvise like we were talking earlier. If you're total, just you have this basic story in your head, you want to do it, and your player's kind of doing things that don't make sense, or you just seem like, I'm not prepared for that, you're not going to be agile enough to deal with it. And then you might I've had DMs that have had to leave the room for 20 minutes because they had to figure out what to do next, because they couldn't just go on the fly. So you just, you have to go with those punches, but don't over prepare it. Just prepare enough. I guess I would say, just prepare the basics, prepare the outline. And give yourself something.
Yeah, and I would probably say don't overstress. I mean, you just mentioned stress, but don't specifically overstress about getting every single detail right, because we're gonna do things wrong. Or I should say, you're gonna do things wrong. You're not gonna run a perfect game every time. But I mean, I'm gonna lead that as I'm gonna use that to bring us into our final topic for the evening, is what we did wrong this week. And we're always learning, right? There's a lot of rules in D&D, so don't be afraid to make mistakes and learn along the way. It's all fun. Everyone's having a good time. So, but I mean, what are some things we did wrong recently?
Gauging the challenge rating of a Slytherin tracker.
Well, wait, but was that off of your secondhand book or whatever?
Yeah. So I think we've mentioned this in the previous podcast, but I had made a creature that according to the rules that were written out for it was a challenge rating 1, but was just kicking everyone's butt. But this creature is from a third party company. I don't have it in front of me. Is from a book called 5th Edition Foes, which actually I'm still a very big fan of. But these are creatures from kind of the old school, and they're very brutal. And so I was too fixated on the fact that they had written that it was a challenge rating 1, and I wasn't really looking at how its ability was very brutal. It was extremely dangerous. And so I really should have been more cognizant of that because it was just taking players out of the combat left and right and made it too difficult. So that was something I did wrong.
One thing we were doing wrong was the sneak attack damage.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, basically we were accidentally doing, as it pertains to the assassin.
I have it in my
auto-crit.
head 6 + 6.
Yeah.
That's been established
So
to me.
basically that is for when you get a surprise round, the auto crit. Everything else is like basically just the base sneak attack, as far as I know. Because we looked it up, and it's
so pretty
basically
much when they're surprised, you get all that. You get the mega dice, but after that, you're just gonna get the sneak attack damage and not that additional.
Yeah, like if you're in the
crit.
middle of a combat and you do your sneak attack, you get your sneak attack bonus. But when you only get the auto crit from the assassin when you are actually getting surprise on someone, which it sounds similar, so that's why we were completely confusing it, because it's completely understandable. It's like, yeah, I caught him by surprise. I'm doing my sneak attack.
So it's specifically surprise round.
Yeah.
It's like when you have the game mechanic called surprise on your side, then you auto crit.
Nice.
So it's not something that's going to be happening repeatedly.
Because that's interesting. Because I think I don't have the book in front of me, but I thought it was saying something about if the person you're attacking has not gone yet this combat, meaning if you beat them on initiative, you get your assassin thing kicks in.
For example, like when we did the surprise round on the wizard, we had the drop on him, so that was an auto crit. Whereas if the going in initiative thing gives you advantage.
Oh, okay.
See what I mean? Like, because those two rules, if they combo under the same conditions, there's no point in having advantage on an auto crit because you already auto crit.
So I see. So if you started combat and your character was hidden, then that person would still be surprised, though, right?
No, I don't think so.
Only
That's a sneak attack.
It's different state.
Like surprised as if they're like out of combat, they have no idea. They're like reading a book or painting.
Like when we fought those troglodytes.
Yeah, like they weren't surprised, they were startled.
Well, they were across the way, they didn't know, and then we all went lawn dart on them. That was surprise.
Yeah.
But then if they survive the next round...
Yeah, basically when you get the free surprise round. Because it's kind of a trick of the rules, right? Because it's like this specific word that has a connotation in your head.
Yeah.
Like when I used my sneak attack. Obviously the guy's surprised by it. It's a sneak attack, but it's because surprise is its own thing in the rules where surprise is a surprise round.
It's like you got the drop on them, and
So,
then after that...
Yeah, the way this paragraph is worded, it does sound like you get advantage, and then that's causing him to be surprised, and so that's when. But I see what you're saying.
I mean, how's it worded in the book?
So, starting at 3rd level, you are at your deadliest when you get the drop on your enemies. You have advantage on attack rolls against any creature that hasn't taken a turn in combat yet. In addition, any hit you score against a creature that is surprised is a critical hit. So it sounds like those two things are related.
It should have been kind of like.
But it does say.
Yeah, they should have.
It does say if they haven't taken a turn in combat yet.
Well, no, that's for the
That's
first
the first-
part,
that's
right?
for
Like,
the-
if they haven't taken it... Well, because you also have to look at it like, advantage helps you hit, right? So I roll 2 dice and I pick the better of them.
Sure.
But auto crit is, you don't even roll because you crit, right?
Yeah.
So having the same qualifier for 2 different effects, one of which negates the other, is weird. So
It's
Well, you still have to hit. Like if both of your
auto
rolls.
crit.
No, it's if you hit, it's automatically a critical. But if both of your rolls are too low to hit, then you don't.
Yeah, I mean, maybe we should clarify this more, but
Yeah,
at that point you're abusing the rules
to
a
me
little bit.
like. So it looks like Brett is looking up some more stuff, has some more stuff to say. So I'll let you go in just a sec. But I mean, it seems to me like as a game mechanic, like I don't know everything about D&D, but I know a lot about game rules and stuff. And I've always thought that attack seems way overdone. Like it doesn't seem
it
like
makes sense for an initial attack.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
If
No,
you're completely
definitely.
surprised, you're this assassin, you're meant to take out a target in one shot. Makes complete sense.
Right.
But then having like a mage be able to cast a minor illusion of a bush that you could, in theory, hide behind, so then you could go ahead and do it again would be a very broken rule if that was the case.
Yeah, I agree. Well, we're going to wrap it up for tonight, but
Yeah, I mean,
I'm
that might
hoping
be-
anyone listening to this, I would love people to reach out to us and give us their thoughts on Surprise, and maybe we'll talk more about Surprise on the next episode after we read the rules.
Yeah, I was about to say, surprise!
You're all wrong.
All right, you guys, that's it for tonight. Thank you guys for listening, and thank you for our Dungeon Masters for being in the room. Thank you, John, James, Brett. Say goodnight to everyone.
Good night to everyone.
Good night. Thanks for being here. Check
Good
us
night.
out on Twitter at Orc-Chop Express. Make sure to subscribe to that YouTube channel and check out our website for more information at orcchopexpress.com. Thanks, everyone. Good night.
Later.
Bye.
Fields of dicks.